You see, he has to be convinced first.
By the NJC?
No, yes, he has to be convinced by the NJC and by himself and by his legal advisors.
Because now his legal...
that something is actually wrong and he can go to the... He doesn't just go to the Senate and then say, if he's not convinced.
Mr. Akiri,
he must be convinced before he goes to the Senate.
Now you just brought this to the fore.
Yes.
Now we know that the President has his legal advisor in the Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Yes.
Now, how come this portion of the Constitution, this section of the Constitution...
Yes.
is not stated clearly to the President, and now we're getting to see the Attorney General of the Federation, according to a news report this morning, that he was booed at the NBA conference in Port Harcourt.
Yeah, but that is why he is being booed. This constitution is very clear, it's unambiguous. This is not the best constitution in the world, but this aspect of the constitution is clear. It's very unambiguous. Somebody ought to have seen this. You cannot take this unilateral action. I mean, it's boldly unconstitutional and therefore illegal.
Okay.
You see, so
what the president has done is accept the suspension of as taken by the NJ, the recommendation.
Yes.
But I think it was also stated that it was subject to whatever it was the Senate, subject to 2/3 majority of the Senate. But that also came up. But in the meantime,
yes,
there has to be somebody in acting capacity.
Yes, somebody
Shouldn't that
in
be?
acting capacity. But why suspend this man in the first place when you know the processes leading up to his suspension? We are wrong.
Okay,
Very wrong.
I get the point, really, but
because I just told you that in fact it was the CJN that has suspended this person.
Okay, but
and he is at the center of the allegations. You see, and then the NJC, which recommended this suspension, in fact the CJN is the boss of this thing.
Okay, well
now, but don't forget one thing. After the what am I trying to say? When the matter came up, of course, the CJN stepped aside, in quotes, in favor of the next most senior justice of the Supreme Court. That's Mustafa.
All right,
now Mustafa and CJN are 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, for goodness sake.
Right,
and that's why I said it is incestuous.
Look at section 239 now. I beg your pardon, 238. Yes. It was talking about appointments of president and justices of the Court of Appeal.
Yes.
And he also says, yes, the appointment of a person to the office of president of the Court of Appeal shall be made by the president on the recommendation of the NJC, subject to confirmation of such appointment by the Senate.
By the Senate, that's right.
But at this time, what we have is an acting president of the Court of Appeal, not a substantive one.
Yes.
Do they have to go through the same process? The Senate going through that recommendation from the president to get an acting president of the Court of Appeal?
You see, what we are saying here is that the recommendation by the NJC to the president, to suspend the PCA, the recommendation is bad to start with. And that's what we're saying. The president ought to sit down. He is not a robot. He has to sit down, take a look at the recommendation. Even if anything is going to go to the Senate, and it must, even if anything is going to go to the Senate, now he first of all sits down with his advisors and then say, is this recommendation proper? And he ought to have been told that this recommendation is not proper at all.
So because if he's not advised by the AGF,
yes,
if he's not advised otherwise,
yes,
what can he do?
What can he do? He sends it back. He has the right to send it back. He is the chief executive of the nation, for goodness sake. He takes a look at it and it's not right. And he has to go, he has to send it back. He doesn't move from there. He ought not to have subscribed to this suspension, because this suspension cannot hold at all. We will analyze it. Maybe we are talking now it's not effective. Then we will put it in the papers and analyze it properly. It offends against the rule of natural justice, what has happened, because it's incestuous, because it's the case of somebody being a judge and a prosecutor and a witness in his own cause.
Well, very quickly, now that you're here, we want you to tell us what you think about the NBA's move, asking all its members to boycott the
swearing in
of new SANS.
Well,
that it coincides with the time that all the courts are in, on break.
Yes, well, yes. That's why when I said I was queuing up behind the NBA, I meant just that. You see, in everything that they've taken a decision, it's not all the time I agree with the NBA, incidentally. But on this occasion, yes, why should they witness a swearing in when there is a big problem like this being perpetrated by people who should understand, by the same people, and it is the same CJN that is going to confer these things on this thing, and the government that is subscribing to the suspension of the PCA will be there, and all that. So, and all those, legal people.
Are we likely to resolve all of this in the nearest future?
Well, I hope we will resolve, and everything should depend on the president here.
What action should be taken what singular action would you recommend be taken to put all this, to put paid to all of this?
First of all, I would want the president of the Court of Appeal, as the PCA, and the Chief Justice of Nigeria. He is retiring. He should not be allowed to retire. He should be sent back. He himself and the PCA should be sent back to clean the system. They've exposed the judiciary to ridicule, and the two of them must go.
Who should make the move?
It is the president that has to make the move, in consultation with the ministry, the relevant ministry of Attorney General, and and then of course we have the Federal Executive Council too. All of them must come together and take this decision.